everyone, Fred here from the CC Network. Welcome to another Friday Flashback review. This time, it's a little bit different. Today, it's not only a look at an early Attitude Era event, but it's also the first official collaboration this channel has ever had. I know, come to think about it, I probably should have done this a lot sooner. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, to help me through this review is a man who I've wanted to collab with for a long time, and with me vice versa, it's NJ from the British Fist.
What's up?
Oh, bloody hell. Yes, I knew that was coming, yet I still didn't know how to react. NJ, I hope you're looking forward to this as much as I am.
For the most part, it's questionable, but yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a collab with you. This is going to be a lot of fun, but I think we're going to agree on most of it.
Yes, and with a second participant, there's a slight change to the format just for today. Now, usually I'd go into massive detail if a match goes above 3 stars. The thing is, I'm going to spoil it a little. This pay-per-view doesn't really have that much to really shine about until we get to the main event. I think all who've watched this event would know that, right, NJ? I mean, it's not the best event we've ever seen.
It is a pretty much one-match card, but it's the main event that's going to explain why I was so eager to talk about this pay-per-view.
Indeed, and of course I'll still explain, the build-up and everything, but seriously, the analysis is all that matters, and I'm pretty sure we're going to try and keep this video as short as we possibly can to keep our sanity intact before the main event kicks in. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, WWF In Your House 18, Bad Blood, yes, spelt with an extra D for some reason, took place on October the 5th, 1997 at the Kiel Center in St. Louis, Missouri, with a mammoth 21,151 people selling out the place, which is actually pretty damn impressive. It was, of course, the first event to be held at this arena, and it's been a WWE powerhouse ever since, with 8 different pay-per-views coming here, especially including the Deadly Game Survivor Series, Judgment Day 2007, Elimination Chamber 2010, Rumble 2012, and quite a few others as well, including Survivor Series 2014, which had that great Survivor Series main event with The Authority in it, which is good. Also, there's been a lot of Raws and SmackDowns, and of course, the Raw is Owen show the day after Over the Edge 99, which is very tragic indeed. Anyway, NJ, now we've gotten that out of the way, let's get on with the review. We kick off proceedings with a handicap tag match pitting D'Lo Brown, Kaba Mustafa and Rocky Maivia of the Nation of Domination taking on the Legion of Doom, Animal and Hawk. Now, after failing to win the WWF Tag Team Championships at Ground Zero, the Legion of Doom embroiled themselves in the business of Ken Shamrock's feud with the Nation by making the save from a beatdown. Following this occurrence, a 6-man tag match was made for Bad Blood because it makes sense. The Legion of Doom were also assisted by Ahmed Johnson, who of course was feuding against his former Nation members, but due to injuries he couldn't ally himself with this faction at Bad Blood. On top of that, thanks to an injury at the hands of Farouk in the Intercontinental Championship tournament, Shamrock was unable to compete as well, which meant that this match was a handicap match. Oh boo-hoo, I'm sure a lot of people were missing Shamrock here. Anyway, the Nation defeated LOD off a Farouk interference in 12 minutes and 20 seconds. This match, I have to admit, was relatively interesting from a psychological perspective, hyping up Ken Shamrock from competing, the Rocky Sucks chants leading to Rock's antagonism for his opponents, and both teams showing a lot of aggression because, of course, the Nation, everyone hated them, and they were openly cheating with low blows and kicks behind the referee's back, and I have to admit, it was pretty standard, basic momentum shifting between the two teams. The Nation didn't get too much in before LOD came back in, tacked them again. The Rock interfered often to change momentum back to the Nation again. And the Rocky Sucks chants from the minute the Rock came in made the crowd feel alive to a degree. And then, of course, once the 2 hot tags in for LOD came through, the crowd woke up. But apart from that, they weren't really interested, to be honest. It was a match that only really came alive right before its conclusion, with Farouk interfering to cost LOD the match. It was a solid match. And then again, I'm not sure how you feel about it, NJ. You could be completely different than I am for it.
Thinking about this match, I went into this thinking, okay, it's younger days of The Rock. It's got D'Lo Brown, who I've always been a fan of, always liked his style of performing. But to me, this match was a bit bland. It just really didn't give me as much as I was hoping for, especially from the teams involved. But I understood that it was the progression of the individual wrestlers growing further to their later success. But it just felt a bit bland to me.
I also feel that I think the crowd wanted Shamrock to turn up just to amp up the animosity between the teams, because even though he was injured, I think a lot of people are thinking, hey, he comes in, makes interference, it would make more sense. I mean, Farouk interfering, while it was good to give the nation the victory, it didn't feel like it was entirely necessary.
When it comes to Farouk, though, I'm glad that happened because this match needed something. And yes, Farouk may not have done the greatest part of the match, but something needed to give it at least a kick. Like you said, Shamrock weren't there, which played into the story. So for Farouk there to show the power of numbers in the Rocks team, it was a good thing to add into the match. Just if that didn't happen and it finished just normally, I don't think it would have given off the same impression as it did with Farouk.
Yeah, I felt the match lasted just enough time. It was fine, and the crowd, when they got a live word there, I mean, I'm going to be very kind to this match. I found it was entertaining compared to what I thought it was going to be. I'll give it a solid 2 stars, actually. This might annoy you and a few others, but this was actually a decent way to open the show, really.
It's a match that I'm going to say I wouldn't watch back.
So you say it's a miss, then?
A miss.
Ugh, not a good way to start the show off, eh? Nonetheless, we have the next one to go, and we have some tragic events to speak of. Of course, this event is not only well known for the Hell in a Cell main event, but it's also, of course, the event where Brian Pillman died a few hours beforehand. He was found dead in his hotel room on the afternoon of the show, thanks to a genetic heart condition that was unknown, and he was scheduled to face Dude Love here. Obviously, in this entire feud with Goldust and all the rest, it actually would have made valid sense. And unfortunately, because of Pillman's death, 2 matches were put in at the last minute, which includes this match. A midget tag match. I don't know where Vince got this idea from. Max Mini and Little Nova taking on Tarantula and Mosaic. And honestly, there isn't that much I need to say. It ended with Mini and Nova getting the win in 6 minutes and 43 seconds. And all I can really say is it was quick, because these guys were quite small, they could easily move, but the move execution was sloppy, and sure, JR Burning King saying that, inevitably, that he has lots of people in his lap, which is funny as hell. But apart from that, this match was incredibly flat and boring.
I was going into this match hoping, even though I'm not fully aware of the wrestlers involved, I was hoping for much faster pacing, wrestling from one side compared to the dominance of the other. So for this to replace the match that I felt would have been obviously a lot better, I guess this match had to live up to being a replacement, which I don't think they tried or did as much as they could have.
No. I mean, the fact is that this match had no story to it. I mean, if this is just like a sideshow match, it didn't really do anything to entertain. Again, if you had the commentary on, you could have JR ripping King a bit, but apart from that, there was nothing. And honestly, you can look at the ratings on screen right now. For me, it's a big fat 0. It was a complete waste of time, and it was a bit of a letdown considering the match we just had beforehand. But, let's keep going, I guess. What would you say, NJ? Is this a miss?
It's a miss. I felt if they didn't have botches and they actually, in my opinion, upped their performance, it would have still been a miss, but at least more enjoyable for the pay-per-view.
Indeed, and the fact that the crowd were completely dead didn't help either. Anyway, the next match we have here is the 2 of WWF's most wild and random tag teams, if you want to put it that way, going for the tag team championships. The incumbent Moss and Thrasher, the Headbangers, against the Godwins. Now, thanks to help from Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Headbangers won the vacant tag team championships, including in a match against the Legion of Doom, the Goblins, and Owen and Bulldog in a 4-team elimination match. It was a bit mad. I can't believe the Headbangers actually won the tag titles. I completely forgot about it. The week after their win, the Goblins defeated the champions in a non-title match, thanks to Uncle Cletus costing them the match, and it was therefore obvious that a title match would come through afterwards at Bad Blood. The Headbangers then saw further complications after they were defeated by Jose Estrada and Jesus Castillo of Las Boricuas. That's a mouthful. Thanks to the Goblins' interference, ensuring that the champions would remain so, and going into the pay-per-view, they could easily take them from them. And they used the numbers game to their advantage, defeating the Headbangers to become the new champions in quite an elongated 12 minutes and 17 seconds, and they were nearly stripped of the belts by Commissioner Slaughter for attacking the now former champions afterwards, but they did see some sense. Now, The Headbangers, I'll give them some credit. They got the crowd on their feet cheering for their moves and actions, but outside of that, nothing. Literal nothing. And okay, some psychology of the interference of Uncle Cletus and the numbers game playing in was little, but it didn't do enough over the course of the whole match. The pace quickened every so often, but it was slow, stilted, and honestly very boring. And considering it was 12 minutes and 17 seconds, oh man, it felt just lifeless. I mean, not as lifeless as the previous match, but at least that had some pace. This didn't really have anything, and I'm not sure what you thought about this, NJ, but I thought this was probably the worst match on the card, and that says something.
The Headbangers, I can't say they were my favourite tag team, but at least they were a tag team that I could watch and somewhat enjoy as a tag team back in the era they were in. But again, just like the match before, this match was a letdown for me. The crowd were dead for it. I felt that even though they may have tried a little bit more than the match before, it still didn't feel exciting enough to deserve to be that long because it just didn't seem to flow. I'm not sure what it was, but I just didn't connect with this match. I was just waiting for it to finish.
Yeah, I mean, the finish was honestly predictable. I mean, the Goblins tried to and pretty much dominated from the bell. I mean, they hardly really got much of a say from the Headbangers, but it was definitely a match that I would never want to watch again, even if I tried. It's a 0 for me. I just look and thought, okay, you put a tag team who no one really respected against a team who no one really respects. And the chemistry didn't work, and it just was a bit of a throwaway match that really didn't mean much.
I like there was a new champion crown, but it's a big miss. I just didn't get into it at all.
Yeah, and the Goblins, I don't think many people think they're a favourite team, but hey, at least they won something, I can say. Next, we have the finals of the WWF Intercontinental Championship Tournament, pitching the Hart Foundation against the Nation of Domination, as Farouk takes on Owen Hart to be crowned the new champion. And of course, due to the infamous neck injury suffered in his win against Owen at SummerSlam, the title was vacated by Stone Cold Steve Austin and put up for grabs in the tournament. Owen beat Goldust and Brian Pillman by DQ, firstly after Goldust repeatedly blowed him, and in the second match, Goldust attacked Pillman. And while Farouk advanced, despite losing to Ken Shamrock, he had to pull out due to injury, as we've noted, and he defeated Ahmed Johnson by DQ when Johnson hit Farouk with the ring steps to earn his place. Now, despite a restraining order executed by Owen in the build-up, Stone Cold was at ringside to be presenting the belt to the winner. He also was the guest commentator and the timekeeper. It's pretty sure you couldn't give a drunk, surly redneck that many roles and opportunities. It sounded like a barrel of fun. Anyway, Owen pinned Farouk off an Austin belt shot to win the title in 7 minutes and 42 seconds. Now, this match, I have to admit, it was stop-start pace, but I did have some fluid momentum shifts to keep it interesting, but this match was entirely about Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I will admit, his presence was distracting, but it was golden for the story as Austin's trash-talking Owen on commentary basically meant that every time Owen kept going to that side of the ring, he just looked at Austin and went, you know what, I'm going to hurt you at the best chance I can. Owen, of course, then thought, hey, I could do some good psychology as well, because the crowd really are just looking down at Austin by targeting Farouk's knee and stretching it and hitting it as best he could. With Farouk selling well, Jim Neidhart came out to distract the referee, which is also great, and I have to admit the finish was a bit weird, to be honest. Austin decking Farouk in the head with the belt. I don't see why that happened, unless they were building towards a match between the two later, which of course did happen, but at this time of watching you think that didn't really make much sense, but meh. I feel the match was okay, but nothing fantastic. It probably shouldn't have gone on as long as it did.
I was hoping more from this match, more because of the story. This is one of the matches that had some story going into it. Farouk coming out like he did in the opening match, I thought there would be a bit more from that. But yeah, like you said, it was concentrating on Austin, making him the focus, ready for his feud with Owens after the match. So I think for that, it had a lot going into it, but I feel that Farouk and Owens may not have had the best chemistry. That's why Austin was like a saviour for the match. He was there to, you could almost say, help out where needed, or at least cover up the lack of chemistry between the two. So going into the pay-per-view, there was something there to make it worthy of being here. But I feel as a match, it's good that Austin was there.
Indeed. I mean, it increased my enjoyment of it somewhat. But I mean, the crowd were kind of indifferent about it because obviously they couldn't hear what Austin was saying, which we obviously could. So they were just thinking, oh, we're just watching a slightly technical but physical wrestling match. There wasn't much for a pre-Attitude Era crowd to really get invested in. And also, as I mentioned in the little build-up thing, where was Ahmed Johnson? To help out or do something. It felt a bit awkward and a bit... Then again, he had obviously problems with both the Hart Foundation and the Nation, so I can kind of understand that. But maybe him costing Farouk the match would have made more sense. But nonetheless, I feel the match had some solid foundations, but it didn't really do anything with it. I felt it could have been a lot more. And honestly, if it wasn't for the psychology, this would be probably a bottom-rung match. For me, it was half a star. It may seem harsh, but... The match's actual core content didn't deliver enough for me.
Going to be a miss from me, but I will give it credit for being a match that you could say is worthy for the pay-per-view.
Next, we have, in the second of the last-minute matches added after Brian Pillman's death, Los Boricuas versus the Disciples of the Apocalypse in an 8-man tag match. As I've stated, it is a last-minute addition. There wasn't too many actual things of build-up, but both teams had an 8-man tag at SummerSlam, with Los Boricuas getting the win on that occasion. On this one, the Disciples of the Apocalypse got the win in 9 minutes and 11 seconds, lasting 5 seconds longer than the SummerSlam encounter, if you know. Now, I said earlier on that the Godwins versus the Headbangers was the worst match of the evening. I completely forgot that this was coming up, even though I've got my script in front of me. Nonetheless, the only thing this match had was quick pace, because you had all these members of the teams trying to attack each other, but seriously, this gangland war feud that was going on in WWF at the time, not many people cared, and I can tell by the lack of crowd reaction, this was just a flat, boring mess, and I think you would agree with me, NJ, right?
100%. This was dull. There was really nothing to this team beat down fight match, whatever you want to call it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel it was like a waste of time compared to the other matches. It was just a big, big miss straight away.
And I'm giving it a 0, so we kind of could tell based on this pay-per-view with only, one match in my eyes getting above any sort of relevance, and yours are all misses so far. This doesn't look very good, does it?
Not yet, no.
Next, we have the flag match between Vader and the Patriot and WWF champion Bret Hart and the British Bulldog of the Hart Foundation. Now, this has got quite an interesting build-up to it, because after the Patriot's debut in July, he'd been a constant thorn in the anti-American Hart Foundation's side, standing up for America, because honestly, what else is he going to do? He defeated Bret on Raw in his first match, which enraged the Canadian, and as a result of said win after the title victory at SummerSlam, the Patriot was named #1 contender to face Hart for his newly won championship at Ground Zero, which Hart won, and despite that, Hart and the Foundation still weren't done interfering in his matches with the Patriot week after week, including one against Vader, and you're thinking that the Mastodon would help destroy the Patriot, but he didn't. He gave him a hand and stopped Bret and his family from laying the Canadian flag on top of him. The Patriot returned the favour, assisting Vader in a championship match a few weeks later, and after these altercations, Commissioner Slaughter thought, you know what? We need to get this in a flag match, and the Hart Foundation didn't take very kindly to it, attacking both Vader and the Patriot, laying down the Canadian flag over both of them to symbolise their dominance. Now, before I get into this is a bit confusing, because usually in a flag match, you pull the flag off the thing and you win the match, but apparently all 4 members of this match were all injured going in, so they thought, hey, we're going to add pinfalls and submissions, because it'll make it interesting and it'll make it easier for the guys to pull it off. It's weird, I still don't get it, but nonetheless, Hart and Bulldog won the match after Hart rolled up the Patriot, and the match lasted an eye-watering 23 minutes and 13 seconds. Where do I start with this one? There were some good psychology elements here. Patriot and Vader assaulting Bret and Bulldog before the match started. Loved it. Vader and Patriot using low blows to take Hart and Bulldog down from the flagpoles. Considering the rivalry, it made sense. Bret targeting the Patriot's leg with the figure four around the post, knowing that Patriot was simply the only man on his team who could realistically climb. I loved that. Vader attempting to get the flag, but he doesn't. At least he tried against everything the commentators were saying about the fact that he couldn't climb anything. And Bret using the ring bell to swing momentum was nice. He is a heel. I kind of like that. Patriot's high-flying moves, though, sloppy on impact, but I will admit, best move of the entire night, probably. The sharpshooter counter into a sharpshooter of his own. Brilliant. The crowd were into the USA team for a while, but they died out after a while, and as the match prolonged, they didn't seem to give a damn. And in terms of time and pacing, yes, the match went 23 minutes and 13 seconds. I liked that, but at the same time, even with this match going, the momentum shifts were fluid, but it slowed as the crowd went dead. And by the end of the match, you just thought, okay, no matter what they're doing to try and live this up, it's not going to work. And the rules of the match basically killed any form of enjoyment for it. Along with the fact that a fan interfered for no legit reason. But nonetheless, this match was interesting. It was a heated rivalry, and this big stipulation match should have felt bigger. I'm not sure what you feel about it, NJ, but this was a bit of a disappointment to watch for me.
It went on too long, because at this point of the pay-per-view, I know back then fans could have felt differently, because obviously they were living and stuff. But I think by this time, because of how bad the pay-per-view was, or how I felt about it, we were just waiting for the main event. So for that, do you really want a 25-something minute match just before the match that fans obviously are there to see? A flag match, I don't really expect it to go on that long. And also, it had the power names, it had the names that obviously make this match somewhat of a draw. But I felt with the bad feeling of the pay-per-view, with Pillman's death, I just felt there was just so much negativity going forward in this pay-per-view. The feeling could have been better if obviously maybe if it was a little bit shorter. But for what we got, like you said, the sharpshooter spot, I guess the fan thing made some fans react. But it had the chance to be a good match, but I just felt there's just so much negativity going up to this point, and that's probably why the enjoyment factor from the fans there, like you said, the crowd reaction and my enjoyment wasn't at the level which the WWF would have expected us to have for this match.
And I feel, I look at this match, like I said, I would have asked this earlier, but yeah, the Pillman thing, I wasn't sure how it would affect the other wrestlers. I mean, Bret and Bulldog were in a faction with this guy for most of the year up until this point, so no wonder they may have other things on their mind, but at least they played their heel roles well. I'll give them credit there, but I agree. I mean, this match did drag on way too long. The crowd obviously felt that. We felt that watching at home, and while this match did have some solid points to give, it definitely should not have gone, especially considering that the rules were obvious complete bull. And then on top of that, not to forget this, we hardly ever saw the guys go up there and actually get the flags. This was majoritively a normal tag match, but just a really slow one. And for that, I'm going to be somewhat kind to the good things it gave, but then immediately realise I may have made a mistake. It's going to be a 1.5 star match from me. That might be kind, but I don't know. The match was poorly executed, and it could have been done much better.
I'm going to agree, but instead of saying miss, it's actually going to be in between miss and I'd watch again, because it's a match that I had some feeling, but not as much as I should. And out of all the matches on the card, I felt there was more to this match. So it's going to be in between miss and I'll watch again.
And finally, we reach the match that everyone remembers this event for, the Hell in a Cell match, the first ever between the Undertaker and the European champion Shawn Michaels for the number one contendership for the WWF Championship at Survivor Series. And I think if you know your history, you know exactly where this one's going. Then again, you've already watched the match. Why am I explaining this? Anyway, the build-up to this match was quite simple. As you know, Michaels, as a special guest referee, cost Taker the championship via a chair shot against Bret Hart at SummerSlam. Michaels then proceeded to attack Taker with the help from the newly christened Triple H over the preceding weeks, leading to the match at Ground Zero, which ended in a no contest thanks to a multitude of interferences by Triple H, Chyna and Rick Rude, the members of the newly formed D-Generation X. Now, as a result of this, Taker declared that after the hell Michaels had put him through, he would return the favour by locking the Heartbreak Kid inside a cage. But not just any cage, one that he couldn't escape from, and one where he couldn't have his friends help him to victory. That cage was, of course, what we call now the infamous Hell in a Cell. Now, of course, if you know how this match goes, you know exactly where the result is. Shawn Michaels defeating The Undertaker, and he did it thanks to the debut of, well, just a wrestler who I don't think you all may know of, known as Kane, in just under 30 minutes. And I mean just under 30, because it went a minute under. And of course, Shawn Michaels became number one contender and went on to do the Montreal Screwjob, so not sure if that worked out in his favour, but nonetheless, NJ, let's get into the match that we both enjoy. And there is a lot I have to mention here. You're looking at the ratings on the screen right now, everybody, thinking, oh yeah, if I did this on my own, I'd be talking about it in depth for nearly 10 to 15 minutes. But I'll try and make this as quick as I possibly can, because I want to give NJ his room too. Now, of course, this match revolved entirely around Undertaker beating the living snot out of Shawn Michaels, and it was wonderful. Shawn just wanted to get the hell out of there when Taker entered, and he was scared shitless, and Taker beat the living snot out of him. You can't go wrong. But Shawn showed some resilience, but he couldn't really fight against Taker whatever he tried to do early on. But when he got offense, he only used big moves and weapon shots. He's trying to do the biggest things to keep Taker down, and with a pile driver on the steps doing that, he at least got to swing momentum back into his favour about 10-15 minutes in. Shawn got the chair, which started all of this, of course, and whacked it across the back, and Taker just kicked out of it like he did anything. Of course, this is Taker trying to prove he is the boss, and he can. Shawn then got Taker's arm wrapped in the ropes, which was very smart indeed. Shawn then lands on the cameraman and kicks the crap out of him, because now, well, I's just getting pissed off, I guess, and he causes the door to open, and I love this, as you all do. Taker sits up off a sweet chin music, and Shawn just runs out thinking, oh shit, what the hell can I do to this guy? Taker then busts HBK open, which means we have blood, and of course, both men going up the cage, and you know how the rest of this goes. The blood drops onto the camera as it goes down, again showing how violent this is, and then of course, Shawn falls off the cage through the announce table, and he's now bleeding like a stuffed pig, and Taker swings the chair right smack into Shawn's face. Of course, sweet revenge. Then in the psychology of Kane debuting, taking down Taker, and somehow a bloody, beaten, broken Shawn Michaels covers for the win, and you're thinking, how the hell did this happen? It was insane. Taker, in terms of move variety, ramming Shawn in between the cell and the ring post multiple times may seem formulaic, but it was great. An elbow off the cell wall by HBK was lovely, the pile driver on the steps was great, the catapult was great, the lawn dart throw by Taker, which was fantastic, the fall from the cell as well, and a chokeslam from the top rope for some bizarre reason, and in a cage with a roof on it. Doesn't seem right to me, but there we go. The crowd, I think you can basically sum this up. It was loud as hell, and the longer it went on with HBK being beaten, it just got even louder. Even with HBK in some form of control, rest in peace chants. And the further this match went on, there were big pop after big pop after big pop. They went mental for pretty much everything, and you can't deny that. But of course the boos at the end for Shawn winning was expected, but I loved it. And on the pace and timing, yeah, 30 minutes is amazing. I can't deny that. I loved that Taker controlled the match and was in control very quickly if Shawn ever tried to get offense. And inevitably, the desire for Taker to hurt Shawn helped that. HBK gets one move in, momentum shifts again, it's fantastic. And sure, Shawn did get a chance, but it was just fun because it showed exactly what Taker wanted. And you're looking at the ratings right now out of all I've just explained. This is a 5-star match through and through. The move variety needed one or two more little things to push it, but my god, this match was phenomenal. Even nearly 20 years on, it is still a match that is incredible for storytelling, spots, crowd, and it just flowed superbly. And NJ, I think you're going to echo my sentiments.
This is exactly what it needed to be. We all said it's been said that this is obviously the first Hell in a Cell, and the way both men, especially the Undertaker, used the cell, they did everything you could possibly think of to the cell, on the cell, in the cell. You had Taker playing to his character and his part of the story. Shawn Michaels showing the fear and the I'm gonna keep on fighting for this match. You had my second favourite wrestler at the time, Kane's debut. You had the story of Paul Bearer. You had, like you said earlier, the creation of D Generation X. So you had Shawn Michaels' part there. There's just so much. Every part of the match is a talking point. You speak about the moves. You know, there's not a wrong move that was done in this match. Everything added up to be a classic, and I could compliment everything that happened in the match because both men put their bodies on the line. They drew what they needed to for the debut of the match. But my thing is Kane because this opened my eyes to, like I've said, a guy who became my second favorite wrestler, who was the guy to watch out for in the stories to come. It was the creation of Undertaker and Kane. There was just so much to talk about. And like you said earlier about the 10-minute thing, I could go on talking about why I like the match, why Kane was such an important part of this match for me as a fan. But overall, I am going to give it a match that I'd watch again and again and again. It's a match that I cannot really think of what else I'd really change because changing one thing could affect the way they did it on their own. And I just give the WWF so much credit here because when you think of Hell in a Cell, these guys showed you what the Hell in a Cell is all about. You could even say Kane showed what it was all about. I'm just going to keep repeating myself because there's just nothing I can see wrong with this. I can even compliment the refs somehow. This was just absolutely brilliant, hands down. It's just a shame that the WWF had something here that was done so right. And then, as the years went on, gradually, slowly, the way these three guys created this, other people, or let's say the WWE, let this match down.
I would agree on that because modern day Hell in a Cells, I understand they've got a reputation to live up to, but it is very difficult, especially when the first one set such a standard. I mean, I've got to point this out here. Even Kane's tombstone, which some people say is a bit of a sloppy one, I had no problem with it. It looked damn devastating. It looked like Taker had his neck fully compressed. And the match was just... I can understand why Dave Meltzer gave it 5 in his own reviews, which, of course, between this match and Money in the Bank 2011 was the last one he gave. And it's just... I can see why. Perfect storytelling, perfect build-up, crowd was into everything. It was paced, slow and methodical, but at least it had a reason to happen and the time actually made sense. The crowd and us watching were just in awe of what we're seeing, and even though, like I've said, the moves nowadays, ramming into the cell, all that stuff, doesn't look that good to warrant a good rating, back then it had never been done before. So it gives itself some validity. And you're giving it a hit, and I can fully agree with you. It is a 5-star match, and it is arguably the best match, probably in WWE's eyes, for many years at a big show. I mean, actually leading back to it, it was probably the best match since Austin and Hart at WrestleMania 13, if I'm not mistaken. And it showed the future of what gimmick cage matches could be, but as you said, over the years, it couldn't really top itself, and yeah, this match, if you haven't seen it somehow, go out of your way to watch this thing. It is entirely worth it, and I think we would both happily watch this again, wouldn't we?
Without a doubt, it's just that even though one of the hardest things about watching this match is this felt special. This was done right. The WWF created this and the rest involved made it what it was. It's just now I think they shouldn't have it. They shouldn't have had it as a pay-per-view each year. They shouldn't have it in a way just because they feel the need to or to boost a rating, because this was done for the right reason, and the story created the feeling, the match, the outcome, everything.
And it made the build-up to the WrestleMania upcoming even more sweet. And of course, with the Montreal Screwjob following the next month, no wonder the WWF got a little bit of a swing in the war with WCW at this time. Anyway, following that, it's now time for me and NJ to give our final thoughts. Now, obviously, with a 5-star match in the main event, this show isn't the worst show ever, and I can always put that, that'll always help. The thing is, though, when you look at the rest of the card, it is pretty poor. I mean, sure, the flag match was somewhat okay, but not great. The opening contest was just below average, in my opinion, but when you've got a 7-match card where pretty much every match on it is of absolute horrible quality, with no redeeming factors, and even if the ones that scored okay didn't prove to be that incredible, the pay-per-view comes across as a one-man event that doesn't do much to really entice. One-man, I should say one-match event that does very little to entice. And honestly, it's a pay-per-view worth watching for the main event, but you have to sit through a lot of stuff that you really don't want to see before you get to it. Nonetheless, I have to be kind to it for what little it did right. It's not December to Dismember bad by any means, but it does show me, in regards to how poor the roster was even back then, and what was executed here, it was a flat event brought back to life by an absolute stonker of a main event. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be giving Bad Blood 1997 a 2.25 out of 10. That may seem very kind, but when you have a match of such quality ending this show, you have to feel a little bit positive.
If I was doing a star rating, it may have hit a 3, but my feelings are the Intercontinental title match, the flag match, and the main event, in my opinion, are only the matches that made this pay-per-view. But it's the main event that fans finally came alive, where emotion came out, where the future was made. So it's not a pay-per-view I'd want to watch again or will really watch again. It's the main event that I would just go straight in and watch. And it's a shame because the other matches had potential to be better, but with the Pillman death and last minute throw-in matches, thing that could have played a factor, but in some cases I feel the wrestlers in the certain matches didn't play out as much as they could. So the main event is the only reason I'd come back to this.
And also I want to point out, if anything could be a consolation, those wrestlers going into this pay-per-view probably knew this match was going to be something special, so maybe making themselves look worse in comparison may not have been the best idea, but if that was their intention, they sure as hell went out there and did their job. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, 2.25 out of 10 is pretty poor. I'd like to see somebody throw me an Attitude Era event, or a pre-Attitude Era event, that once again confirms that nostalgia isn't arguably the best thing in the world. But then again, that main event made up for it totally. Ladies and gentlemen, Bad Blood 1997 Friday Flashback review is done. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I hope that it leads to more collaborations between me and you, NJ, because I say we've had a lot of fun with this, despite the pay-per-view's subpar quality.
Even though I was very excited to talk about the main event, yes, I very much look forward to talking about pay-per-views. Maybe not particularly this one, it was more the main event, but it's been a lot of fun to work together, shall we say, in doing a flashback.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people listening. This has been a Bad Blood 1997 Friday Flashback video for the CC Network with NJ of the British Fist, and I will see you all next time. Cheers!